This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the October 30th, 2025 South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop Special Meeting. I will call this meeting to order. We have all commissioners present this evening. At this time, I'd ask you to all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded, filed, and posted to the Township website for public access. At this time, I'll ask Township Manager Tom Petrucci to review our public virtual meeting rules. No problem. Yes, just a moment.
Public virtual meeting rules are as follows. Courtesy of the floor for non-agenda items will be at the beginning and end of the agenda. Public comment will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For all listed agenda items, the board president will call for courtesy of the floor prior to the Board of Commissioners taking action on that specific agenda item. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. You will be asked to state your name and address for the record and may then proceed with asking your question. For those participating virtually, please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid any background noise that may cause interference during the meeting. The chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. The staff member monitoring GoToMeeting will then unmute your microphone and you will have the opportunity to comment or ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Agenda item 4 is courtesy of the floor, opportunity for any member of the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone online with any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is budget workshop discussion items, review of the 2026 proposed South Whitehall Township draft budget. And Tom, will you introduce the agenda item, please?
Is the proposed budget for 2026. So we, as the staff, have gone through and prepared the budget per each fund, and it is ready for summary for each section for your review this evening.
Excellent, thank you, Tom. So I'll let the Finance Department begin their presentation.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
So thank you again. I feel like this format in the past has worked for everybody. So we figured if it's not broke, don't fix it, and we'll just jump right into it. We are going to go out of order a little bit on the funds, but it is in the order on the outline that you were all provided with. And then just a reminder that the outline that I'm going to go over is summarizing the workshop packets that you all received ahead of this meeting and in preparation for the first reading of the proposed budget, which is scheduled right now to take place on November 5th during full BOC meeting. So we'll start with the water fund. As of September 30th, we're forecasting the 2025 cash carry forward to be $1,814,533.56. South Whitehall Township is projecting $10.83 million in revenues for the year 2026, which is a decrease of 16.9% from 2025. And budgeted expenditures are projected to be approximately $12.57 million, which is an increase of 16% from the year 2025. The actual numbers shake out as revenues at $10,837,535, allocation revenue at $1,790,000, expenses $12,577,535, which at the end of 2026 then would leave us with a surplus of $50,000. LCA is raising our rates for the year 2026 by 4.55%. However, at this time, there's no rate increase being passed on to the residents for the year 2026. This puts our fund balance at approximately $9 million at the end of 2025, which is greater than the $5 million that's required under the fund balance policy. For 2025, the interest earned to date on the water fiscal stability monies is $224,506.85, and that was with an APY of 4.48%. Just some notes on the cash carry forward. The water budget is structured to build the fund balance to prepare for future capital infrastructure needs, and also includes unspent carry forward from the years prior. There's nothing too exciting to discuss in the water fund, but if anybody has any questions, those are the numbers as we see them for the rest of 2025 and then for 2026, but I'll definitely turn it over to you guys if you have any questions.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions on the water fund? Now, was there any public comment? Okay. Thank you, Tricia.
We'll move on to sewer. As of September 30th of 2025, the 2024 cash carry forward is being forecasted at $1,488,104.11. We are projecting $4.62 million in revenues for the year 2026, and that's an 18.8% increase over the year 2025. Budgeted expenditures are projected to come in at $4.62 million, which is also an increase of 18.8% over 2025. That puts the revenues and expenses both at $4,628,543. There is a proposed 4% sewer rate increase in the 2026 budget being passed on to South Whitehall Township residents, and that is based on the sewer rate study that was conducted back in 2024. LCA is raising the sewer rates in 2026. There are several components that feed the effective rate on what the sewer increase is going to be. And if you have questions about those components, Herb can speak to them.
Any questions from the board?
Okay. So this puts our fund balance at approximately $5.95 million at the end of 2025, which is less than the $10 million required under the fund balance policy, keeping in mind that that requirement was put in place due to the Kleins Island expansion. 2025 interest earned to date on sewer fiscal stability at an APY of 4.48% was $140,000, $794.19. Some notes about the cash carry forward in the sewer fund. The sewer budget is structured to build the fund balance, obviously to prepare for the Kleins Island expansion, as well as other future capital infrastructure expenses. This also, again, includes unspent cash carry forward from the year prior. With the recommendation from the rate study and LCA's rate increase, we believe it's imperative that we do at least the recommended 4% for 2026. If we pick apart that 4% increase, we've just listed here how that would impact a ratepayer's bill. So the sewer flat rate would go from $91 per EDU to $94.64. Sewer metered would go from $4.98 per 1,000 gallons to $5.17 per 1,000 gallons. And the sewer base charge would increase from $36 a quarter to $38 a quarter. And then the objective at the conclusion of the sewer conversation is to get direction from you all on the 4% increase that's being proposed.
Yeah, I just have a question. I apologize if I missed it. What is LCA's increase on their sewer rates for 26?
There's multiple factors into that, Jacob. At the Kleins Island, the O&M costs are going up 12%. There is a little Lehigh Relief Interceptor 1 That project has completed, where in 2025, we were paying 31 cents per 1,000 gallons. That has come back down to the 19 cents per 1,000 gallons. Since we have been doing a lot of I&I work and the new sewer meters are in now, we are trending to have lower readings going to the plant. So there's multiple factors how to take into consideration there. And with going through what we needed to do for the whole sewer reduction plan, which the total cost for that is, as soon as my mouse decides to work here. $7,860,000. So that's why we are requesting the 4% increase to stay on track with the sewer reduction plan and the corrective action plan that was placed on us by DEP.
Any other questions?
Yeah, with the, my concern is the Klein Island expansion, that we don't hit the residents with a 8 or a 10% increase down the road. And I don't know if we know the numbers yet and how that would play out.
I think we projected, what, a 4% every year for the next
Like
number of
10
years based on the
yes.
rate study? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and the current Act 537 plan focuses mostly on I&I. So to your point, the reevaluation of the data with the increased meter readings across the entire Klein's Island intermunicipal aspect would across the region would predicate whether we need to then reassess in accordance with DEP regulations to have a larger increase over time. But right now, we're okay based on the 4%.
Yeah, that was my question. I didn't know if there was enough data yet from the I&I or from.
The data on the I&I is showing preliminarily that it's working, but what needs to happen is it needs to be reconciled by DEP, and that hasn't even gone through to DEP at this point. They haven't approved the 537 plan. They just received it, so they have 6 months to review it, essentially.
And that Klein's Island project won't hit for another couple of years, though.
It may not hit till 5-10 years. It depends on what that data looks like, how effective the I&I is.
Okay.
The intent would be to make sure that we're maximizing the I&I across the region, so that you may not need to have a wholesale all the trunk projects and so forth, the finger projects they call them. Maybe the goal there is to try to not have to do that immediately, if at all. But it's predicated upon the I&I being extremely effective and approved by DEP.
Okay.
Will the township receive any updates once it is reviewed by the DEP?
Yes, we are statutorily required to be notified on the whether the Act 537 plan is considered administratively complete. So then that's when the technical review would start. So at this point, they haven't even confirmed whether it's administratively complete. So once that starts, then that starts the clock for the 6 months. And they will take the entire 6 months for a project of this magnitude.
Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments? Is there any public comment?
Okay, so
Thank
we'll
you.
go ahead and move on to the refuse fund. As of September 30th, 2025, we are forecasting the cash carry forward for 2025 to be $1,658,583.47. We're projecting $5.17 million in revenues for the year 2026, which is a 1.56% increase over 2025. Budgeted expenditures are projected to be $4.75 million, which is an increase of 2.21% from 2025. That turns into revenue at the amount of $5,174,710, expenses $4,753,990.44, with a surplus of $420,000, $719.56. There's no refuse rate being passed on to South Whitehall Township residents in 2026. I'm going to skip to the paragraph underneath that because I think that we all understand the reason. We've known from day one that those first few years of the contract, we were going to see surpluses. And then as we got closer to the end of the 5 years, we would see that gap close. So the idea was to smooth that out over the course of 5 years. So this puts our fund balance at approximately $1,658,583.47 at the end of 2025, which exceeds the amount required under the fund balance policy by approximately $602,000. Again, the surplus is due to the first 3 years of the 5-year contract to maintain that one rate over the life of the contract. And like I said, we'll see this even out as we get into the 5th year. So just a discussion about the low-income senior refuse discount. Social Security just released the numbers last week that the rate from 2025 to 2026, the Social Security recipients are going to see an increase of their benefits by 2.8%. So I just wanted to give you the numbers. If we were to take that exact 2.8%, and apply it to the current thresholds, that would increase single from $35,175 to $36,160, and then it would increase married from $43,575 to $44,795. Now, I know that there's always discussion about what should those thresholds be. We talked, I think, at least in great length last year about how can we do this and still make sure we can afford, the discount. And I believe last year when we talked about it, the number was 100, right? We could do 100. I'll read the questions that were asked on the refuse fund into the record, and then I'll give you guys some numbers because I figured you're probably going to want to know how many applications were received, approved, denied, that data. So I do have that for you. So I believe we only received one question about the refuse, and it was concerning a new line item for $25,000 for toter purchases. And then the administration's response to that was, in the past 2 years, when we've been charged for the toters that residents purchase, we did not account for those expenses in addition to the contract prices. So now what we have is both a revenue line for when the toters are purchased and an expense line for when we make that payment to JP Mascaro. That way everything can be tracked a little bit easier. So before I open it for questions, we'll go right into the numbers. To date, we've received and approved 36 units for the senior refuse, the low-income senior refuse discount applications. There are 7 applications that were denied, and there are 11 applications that, through efforts of mine to get them to provide complete information, they still have not done that. I can say that at the start of the year, the goal was to send applications to everybody who applied and qualified in 2024. So we didn't want anyone to have to dig for the application if they applied and were approved last year, and we knew the income thresholds were risen above what the Social Security increase was. I think the assumption was they'll surely apply and qualify this year. Of the people that I sent those applications out to, 15 of them have not responded. The people that were applied and approved are a combination of people that didn't apply last year and people that we did outreach to in January, where we just proactively sent them the applications.
Is it possible when the refuse bills go out to put a note to advise the seniors that this is an option available to them?
Yeah, it's a really difficult question to answer, and here's why. It's a program that likely only benefits a very small amount of people. So while I'm happy to do that because we are able to add watermarks to the bill now, I am hesitant when we send out as many bills as we send out that have a watermark that's targeted to a discount for a very specific and small group of people, if that really just does not incite frustration on the masses of the people who are receiving that bill. So that is the honest answer that I can provide, but we have the ability to do it. We can certainly put a watermark on the bill. We've found tools to be able to do that and avoid the costs of a separate mailer. I just don't know if that's the best way to try and get the message out to low-income seniors in the community. Especially remember, as we increase those thresholds, we also know we have to cap it at 100. So, that's a number that we can't move. But if that's the direction that the commissioners want to move in, we absolutely can make that happen. I would just caution you on what the flip side of that might look like.
I appreciate that approach.
Yeah, I'm personally, oh, go ahead, Chris.
So if I get these numbers, so with the 36 units that I shouldn't say units, 36 people that you have, you denied 7, 11 you didn't get enough info from, that totals 54. What was the number about the 15?
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't explain that right. Of all of the applications that we received, 7 were denied, 11 were incomplete, and 36 were approved and paid out.
Right.
So I probably did not communicate that the right way.
No, I have that. 36, you have 36 people in the program.
No, 36 that were approved, yes.
You denied 7.
Not of that 36.
Correct.
Yes.
And then 11 didn't get enough information. So you had 54 people apply.
Yes.
Okay. Where did the other 50, you said something about 15 and I missed, what was that other 15 that you
The
talked
other
about?
15, sure. So at the beginning of the year, I can't tell you how many I sent without looking at 2024's records. But at the beginning of the year, we proactively sent out X amount of applications for 2025. We sent an application to everybody who applied and was approved in 2024. So of the applications that we sent out proactively, 15 of those people didn't submit an application for 2025 at all.
So that would bring the total to 69 potential people involved in the program.
Yes.
That you felt out of the 100 that we could
Yes.
safely include in the program. And all right, so if you're not going to send them out by mailer, how would we let people know that this is available to them?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know.
I know I asked it.
Yeah, no, it's a good.
There is,
You did ask.
so in the annual refuse mailer, there was it points to the website, which would then the website has that information.
Yeah, I know. If you're on Social Security and you're low income, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're probably not website type people, right?
Well, I would be making an assumption, but yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably right.
Yeah, because I just think to my she wasn't a website person.
I mean, the only other thing,
I
the
just
only
don't-
other ideas I can think to do, I can tell you that when our utility billing person receives incoming phone calls, he does tell them that that program is available. The only other thing I can do is maybe some of the senior centers that are in the community, I can take some applications there for them and by word of mouth. I don't know what the right way is
Yeah,
to spread the word.
I
to
know
your
there's
point.
some senior groups that meet, and I think that may be better to, word of mouth to get it out to them. I just want to see us do as much as we can to help them
Well,
to
because
stay in
the
their
idea is
home.
we want to give this to them.
Right,
We want them
exactly.
to take advantage of it. So I completely agree. I just haven't been able to come up with what is the proper way to get the message out there to everybody who could potentially qualify for this.
One second, correction. It is on the mailer. We added that for this year. There's a whole section that says 2025 payments, fees, and low-income senior refuse discount program, which fully explains it on the mailer that is sent out to homes.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
that's on the mailer and it directs them to the website, is
No,
there-
no, I misspoke earlier. It not only directs you to the website, where the form is, it actually has all the information about the senior program on the mailer itself.
That's the color mailer from the
The
home.
colored
that
mail,
each household
the
receives.
print brochure, the color print brochure from JP Mascara, which goes out every year,
Yeah.
has it directly on there.
That's
So
excellent.
does that also have a number that someone could call if they wanted more information?
Yes. Yeah, we specifically put, I believe, Trisha's extension, so she gets them directly. And yeah, it does point you to the website, but it has all of the information on there already as well, too. We added that for 25.
And
Perfect,
Tom,
that's
can you
perfect.
just refresh my memory? Is it also in the newsletter? Is it?
I
in
believe
the
we added
Township
also in the e-newsletter. Yes. So yeah, for 25, we did endeavor to put it out, to push out that information to make it more readily accessible.
I think that flyer is very widely distributed and probably read by a lot of residents. There's a lot of information on there for them. So thank you for doing that. I think
Yes,
that's
I just had to refresh my memory. Sorry about that.
I would just add, I mean, I think if you're looking for direction on this, whatever you think is the best way to communicate this to seniors,
Okay.
take that approach. I think you've done a great job already. And if you want to reach out to other groups, that's fine. If you don't think that's, whatever you
Okay.
think is effective.
Okay, I mean, I
would
think the
agree.
only, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
I think the only thing that gets complex with taking them to the senior groups that meet here is it's not just South Whitehall Township
correct.
residents. So, but it's not going to hurt in the event. I mean, if it reaches just 4 more people, then it reaches 4 more people. Yeah.
And I know this is anecdotal, but I think the work that the township has done through the newsletter, through the flyer, it's worked because people are aware of this. I've spoken to at least 4 or 5, senior citizen couples that have said, yeah, we know about that, but we've looked at our tax returns and we realized that we just don't qualify. So I think that the number of people that would qualify for this program in the township already is not an enormous number. And I think there's a lot of people that look at it, explore it on their own, and don't even though your response rate is low, that doesn't mean people aren't looking into it, because they are, and they just realize they're not eligible.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, the 11 applications where people have gone non-responsive, I'm fairly certain at least 9 of them are because they know that they don't meet the requirement, and that's why they're not responding. I'm again being presumptuous, but I would venture a guess that some of them fall into that category.
A second, another question on the refuse fund with respect to toters. Do we have a way, or maybe this is Mascaro's job, of tracking how many toters are replaced every year? Is it fairly consistent? Are they, and I know there's probably not a way of tracking this, but are they due to age or hauler error or damage?
Well, I can tell you that the member of the finance team that tracks the ins and outs of toters and the damage claims that are submitted and the additional toter requests that are sent and which ones are aged out and which ones were hauler error, we have all of that documented. Yes, I don't have those numbers for you,
No,
but we are
I was just curious.
we are easily able to pull out the folder. She's old school. She keeps every piece of paper. So yes, we have all of that information. Yeah.
If it's determined to be the hauler's fault, do we then bill them?
They
Like if
just
the hauler
replace it.
bangs their toter against their truck or whatever.
Yeah, they just take it out and replace it then.
Thank you.
Before we move on, though, I don't know, is there an appetite to raise the income threshold just the same rate as Social Security? Is there an appetite to raise it higher than that, keeping
ones
in
that
mind that
were-
100 cap stays in place?
The ones that were denied, were they marginal, or were they just well accepted?
I think even if we raised the income threshold by 5% instead of 2.8, I don't really think that that's going to be the number that pivots anybody from too much income to just below the bar to qualify, if that's
I'm fine raising it for consistency. I think we
I
picked that
think-
metric for a reason.
Yeah, I think it makes sense
Years ago.
to tie it to the SSI rate
commensurate with
because it's
2.8%.
standard that
Okay,
everybody.
that's what I'll
could
do.
I'll be the other
Percent?
person that since we have some leeway, and even if all of these people we're still well under the 100 threshold that you said we could accommodate, that I would be, willing to raise it, to 5%, based on the numbers that you rejected, that you said that wouldn't even affect them either. But I just would like to see us do a little bit more incrementally. I understand that, that balance is going to drop as we near the end of the contract, but I would like to see if we can do a little bit more to get a couple of people more into the program.
So Commissioner Hodges and Tom.
But if you want to go 5, I'll go 5% with you. Chris?
You know what, at first I thought the 2.8, it does, it gives you that standard, it gives you that baseline, it's something easy that you can follow. But now that I've heard Commissioner Peichel's thoughts on it, we could go up so we could accommodate more. If that would help out more of our residents, I think that we should go forward and do that.
Again, there's room if it touches just a half dozen more. We're still well within that 100. I just don't ever want to reach the day where I get number 101 and I have to I don't want to have to tell them no.
Yeah. And based on what you just said about the 11 that you rejected, that even going to 5% wouldn't include them. So I think we're safe moving up not to get close to that 100, as you mentioned, even with, at 69 with people that are into it. So.
Great. So when we prepare the proposed, we will add in the information that we are increasing the income threshold 5%, which is 2.2% above SSI's increase from 25 to 26, and I'll set the new income threshold. We'll move forward with the applications. I will make sure those get into the hands of everybody that qualifies in 2025. And, internally, we'll see if there's centers or somewhere where we can drop some of them off, just to try and get the word out there a little bit more.
And we'll contact Mascaro to change. Well, they don't actually have the rates on the flyer.
We do actually have that because we're not changing the rates each year. So we're able to include that information as well as the up-to-date information on the low-income senior refuse program as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Any other questions with refuse?
Is there any public comment on refuse?
I have a question on the odor. How do we determine if it's their problem or our problem?
That's an excellent question. There's a little bit of subjectivity to that. Right. But generally speaking, if they're over 20 years old, that's usually due to wear and tear. Right. But we do evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. And where we challenge the hauler to say, we actually do think this was your issue based on the damage points of the toter. Right. They have been flexible in listening to that where we've challenged it. So it's it's a little bit like I said, a little bit subjective, but we try to be as objective as we can.
Excellent.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to open space, which if you're, I guess I keep forgetting to give page numbers. If you're following along in your book, open space is on pages 48 and 49. So the township is projecting 49.6 thousand in revenues for the year 2026, which is an increase of 8.72% over 2025. And right now there are no budgeted expenditures for the year 2026. So that would leave the surplus at that 49,613. As of September 30, 2025, we're forecasting the 2025 cash carry forward to be 244, 895, 37. And based on the results of the referendum, there would potentially be the addition of a new land development fund that will have its own set of revenues and expenses and be tracked separately from what you know as the open space fund.
Are there any questions from the board on the open space fund? No one online? Questions? No.
ARPA is the easiest one on this page in this packet. Currently, the township has $1,094,085.42 remaining in ARPA funds. Of that, $12,800 is what remains to be paid on the PD radio maintenance plan. and the remaining balance is what's being held to pay for the existing aerial truck that's reached the end of its useful life and serves the entire township. The interest that has been received on the ARPA monies has also been earmarked for any additional costs that may be incurred from that truck purchase from the original allocation, which took place in 2023. Questions on ARPA?
Questions on the board?
State Highway Aid, pages 67 through 69. We're projecting $706.5 thousand in revenues for 26. This is a 1.68% decrease over what we received in 2025. Budgeted expenditures are projected to be $706.5 thousand, which is an increase of 4.38% from 25. So it's revenues and expenses even at 706, 550, and 64 cents. As of September 30, 2025, the forecasted 2025 cash carry forward number is approximately 481, 543.16. So just a note on state highway aid, for 2026, we're estimating to need $436,000 for street lighting electricity. Due to the increased costs and the reduced amount that we're expecting in liquid fuels money, this leaves only $355,000 to cover street lighting electricity after we've factored out all of the other expenses in the fund. As a result, we've built in $81,000 in Public Works General Fund expense line 41361 to cover those additional costs. We can open it up for discussion just with the last objective there, which is to confirm that the commissioners approve booking those additional electricity costs to that particular line item in the Public Works budget.
I'm curious why there is a projected decrease in funding for liquid fuels.
Electric vehicles.
Oh, okay.
So less people are paying at the pump to fill their vehicles.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the new line item to cover the expenses for street lighting. Certainly makes sense. Does the board have any comments on that particular item?
Is street lighting Herb, are they going to LEDs or anything on the street lights?
As the new ones go up, yes.
Okay.
We have looked into converting all the lights multiple times over to LED for the old gas ones. That actually makes our prices higher due to them having to put the new structure up, the new lines and everything like that. So we have looked at it like 2 or 3 times. We can take another look at it again if you would like, but the last 3 times we looked at it, it actually increased our prices.
About in the long run?
In the long run, that would be when we did ask them for the information.
Right.
That was what our yearly bills would be. So that it does not come back down.
So switching to LED lights doesn't save us money?
No, not with PP&L, not for streetlights. Because that's what we looked at, like trying to phase so many out at a time with them, because they are up for a renewal period every 10 years, unless they burn out sooner. And then we have them switch them because it's work they have to do. But for some reason, yes, I didn't understand it neither.
So even so when they burn out, we can slowly transition to LED?
If you have the proper stuff for that light, yes.
They don't make it easy.
That's part of it as well. Not all of our streetlights can be converted.
And I guess when we redo them, with solar, we could look at the solar option as well.
You can look at that option. Again, we would have to work that out with PP&L because technically the township does not own the light. We only pay for the electricity. They own all the maintenance to the lights. So as they would burn out, we could look at if we want to get into putting solar ones in, if PP&L would do it, I'm not sure if they're going to be interested in that or not, but it's an option we can look into, yes.
There's also, you have to remember, we can't really look at that for state routes. If those routes have received any type of federal funding,
Yeah, I know.
solar lights aren't.
Yeah,
permitted.
I remember we were talking about, I guess, the 309 project or something like that. They brought that up, but I'm thinking, down 28th Street or Helen Street, Springhouse Road, that.
Yeah, it's something we could take a look at, come back to the board. Do we want to get in the business of maybe Public Works handling just the solar ones? Because they would be in our right of way. That's what we would have to figure out. Or is PP&L interested in installing solar? That's one thing we would just have to figure out.
Yeah, it just sounds like if we have to pay for electricity, why wouldn't we then be responsible for the maintenance or the changeover to something more efficient to save us money in the long run?
I understand where you're coming from. Like I said, I had a hard.
I know you don't have the answer, but.
Well, the answer is that we don't own them.
Have the answer.
And there's nothing we can do about it.
So if LEDs right now don't make sense and they would still be costing us more right now, I'm not sure if you can answer this in the future. Do you see them coming down as they become more and more popular and used?
Well, right now, the light itself is free. They don't bill the township for the light install, the parts, anything. It's more or less just the electricity. So what I can't say for 100%, but I have a feeling there's costs that are incurred that raise that price for us.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So just in summary, before we move on, is the full BOC okay with us booking those additional electricity costs to the said line in the Public Works budget?
I am.
Yeah, I think
All
so.
in agreement?
I am.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll move
Very
on
good.
to debt service. What does he need to check? Okay, so we'll move on to debt service on pages 62 and 63. And this chart just breaks down what the debt payment's going to look like for 2026. So the total debt payment is $1,138,580.30. And the breakdown is as follows. For the 2021 general obligation bond, water, the interest amount is $17,552. And the principal amount is $169,969 for a total of $187,521. And then on the general fund, the interest amount is $327,548, and the principal amount is $545.30 for a total of $872,578. If you flip to the next page, you'll see there's another section for bond payment in 2026. And that's when we are going to be making the first payment on the radio bond. So that's broken down as fire tax from the three stations, for the three stations, sorry, I should say, 161, 657.63, Citronia ambulance, 91,978.04, and emergency management, 12,366.63. And you can see that those are principal only payments because there is no interest on those radio bond payments.
And Citronia ambulance will be reimbursing the township on the revenue side, subject to an executed agreement, which has been completed.
Good, thank you.
Any questions on the debt fund?
No public comment? Oh, okay.
So we'll move on to capital. I know that that's usually a really overwhelming section of the packet because it is so massive. So you'll find the complete capital request packet from pages 64 to 149. For 2026, there have been capital requests totaling 583, 623, I'm sorry, 625, 75. And those have all been submitted and included in your packet for review and consideration. When capital requests are submitted, the funding sources for those requests, just like they do every year, come from several different sources. There's grants, there's interfund transfers, there's cash carry forward from the capital fund from years prior. For 2026, however, we identify the capital funding sources as follows. $2,206,330.31 in grant revenue, $96,475 for the LCCD grant for the bioswale first payment. That was received in September of 2025. Interfund transfers from the general fund totaling $1,491,125.76, and the 2025 forecasted capital cash carry forward of $789,694.68. Just to go over some cash carry forward notes, because it's important to remember what feeds that. There are three major contributors. This year, there are two more, so we've just listed all of them. So there's unspent carry forward from years prior. Obviously, there's projects that come in under budget. There are projects being done, in some cases, in-house to reduce the costs. Herb's cost-sharing agreement for paving, and the sale of fixed assets. So before we turn it over to the commissioners to discuss any of the capital items, obviously the objective is just to find out what capital projects the commission wants us to move forward with, and if there are any capital projects that you want tabled.
Thank you, Tricia and team. It's always appreciated to see the grant revenue that staff, with your ongoing efforts, is able to secure for the good of the township. We're able to advance important priorities using taxpayer funds. So thank you again. I am appreciative every time we see one of these reports, and it's significant in this particular category. I'll open it up to the board if there are particular capital requests you'd like to discuss this evening. Overall, I thought that the capital requests were very consistent with the needs of the community for public safety, and certainly looking forward for infrastructure maintenance and upgrades, which is something that South Whitehall hasn't always prioritized, and it's very encouraging to see this map of priorities set forth and being worked on yearly. So I want to thank staff for that forward-looking work.
Just as we've done in the past, and you touched on this too, Tricia, when we request vehicles or, Public Works needs vehicles, police vehicles, whatever, it's always good to use grants and apply for whatever grants we can. I mean, they're out there. We just have to find them and do what we can. And I know just from being on, being in meetings and hearing you come in under budget almost all the time, Herb, I don't think any of these are really unnecessary requests. They are, and I trust that the same thing will happen. We'll get grants for some of these items, and you'll come in under budget. So, yeah, I'm hoping for the same, but I don't have any problem with any of these requests.
I just have two, a comment and then a question. I do want to thank all the departments for the incredibly detailed 10-year capital improvement plan. Every year the plan has gotten better. I remember a couple of years ago and it was just a handful of pages, and now it's just incredible. So thank you for that. I think it's needed, and it also allows us to see where we're headed over the next 10 years. My one question for the Jordan Creek Greenway Phase 2, I know that's we have the capital request this year. What's the timeline on that that segment of the project. I'm fine with it. I'm just curious as to what the time.
So we would know by March whether we'll receive a TASA grant, which actually the deadline was today, or I believe it's today or tomorrow. So we're submitting for 1.5 million for that. So if it's awarded in March, then there could be a scenario where PennDOT wants to see that project move forward on almost like an expedited timeline. So we would potentially go out to bid by the end, by like the fall time period, or even a little bit earlier, because the permitting, we are actually like pretty much finished on that point through the MPDS permit. So I think right now we're like somewhere between 90 to 95% done with the plans, and then the permitting is the final piece. So to answer your question, there's a potential where PennDOT puts us on an accelerated track, and that's why we put it in the budget for this year.
And then I assume we're still at the same place we are with the segment of the trail, connecting the rest of South Whitehall to North Whitehall, given some of the engineering concerns with going. I mean, that's been no.
There's no movement on that part. We're trying to close out all of the DCNR design grant funding, which we have received in the past, which only gets us to the high school. So anything beyond the high school would need to be a separate DCNR grant or some other funding source to try to work through those challenges.
Thank you.
Which are significant.
Yes.
The only thing about capital is we talked in the transportation plan, the Springhouse Road Bridge over on 22. I know there's been no movement, but just in case that there is movement later in the year, that we would start to do some engineering from our point of view to make sure that when they replace the bridge, we have a plan for sidewalks along the west side of Springhouse underneath the bridge. So through our land that's preserved, that, because based on discussions in the transportation planning committee, they tend to take the plans that are in place into consideration when they design bridges. And I just don't want to miss the opportunity to add sidewalks to that side of the bridge when the time comes.
Yeah, we could also seek to have that incorporated in as part of the project. Instead of us designing it isolated from that, like try to marry the two together as part of the project planning.
Right. If we have a plan, a design for sidewalks along the Davis tract that they would then tie into with their bridge, I would think that they would put as part of their planning, but we would need to have something in place to say that we're working on this to include it in their planning.
I'll follow up on that.
What's the timeline to replace that bridge? Does anyone know?
Was that a trick question?
Yes.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
There's nothing tangible.
Like I said, there's been no movement, but
Okay.
you just never know when.
It's inevitable at some point. But at
Correct.
some point could be
Right.
25
So
years.
just
from
that we
now.
keep it on our radar, not that we gotta, but if that starts to get some traction, that, something we don't let slip by us.
I think so. We've discussed this internally as staff, and the next iteration of what you saw was just a draft for the 10-year plan, capital improvements plan. I think the next iteration of it needs to, and this might be something we work on all of next year, and you'll have this by next year, where each project that's set forth in the active transportation plan or in the comprehensive plan, all of that is married together and then tied to the capital improvements plan as well. So like what you see right now is kind of like the germination of that, but we also need to quantify what's on our long range planning projects, which we've started to do, but it's quite a lot. Like just alone in the active transportation plan, as you saw, there's quite a number of projects on there.
Right. I just wanted to make sure it just stays on our radar, I guess, if you like.
Yes, it will, because of the re-examination report of that comprehensive plan requires us to do that. So we need to look at the active transportation plan, see where we're at with implementing that, landscapes plan and so forth. The concept is to constantly reevaluate it. But I think the next step is then also to tie in those projects to tangible costs in our long-range plan as well, which are substantial.
The other thing I have is last year we approved 4 police vehicles. And in January, February, they came in and they got a grant for another vehicle for a 5th vehicle, but we never took a 5th vehicle out of the fleet. And we talked about not expanding our fleet any more than it was. And I just want to make sure that 4 vehicles is 4 vehicles. And if one comes in from another grant that they get that pops up somewhere, that we don't keep expanding our fleet.
Yeah, we've been looking at that closely, and so there were a couple instances of expansions due to staff changes, but we then are in the back end trying to. You'll see in the municipal bid package that'll come before the board at your next meeting. We are trying to eliminate some of the current vehicles at the same time. But that one that you referenced for the grant actually paid for due to a personnel change. There was an actual increase for that one to be transparent. But then on the back end, we're trying to eliminate as many vehicles that we can while still keeping the fleet to the point where it's efficient.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I think 4 vehicles to keep because, they're 24/7, obviously, but spare vehicles is still a cost to the township.
Correct.
Any other comments on capital? Are there any online? No. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so once we go down the path of fire in general, being there's a lot to discuss, a bit of a marathon, maybe not so much a sprint. Is there any appetite for taking a 10-minute break, 10-minute restroom break? Anyone interested in that?
Does staff need one? Is the board good?
I'm good for now.
But if staff would like a break, we can certainly recess for a few minutes. Everyone good?
Well, I'm going to stop talking for a little bit and I'm going to turn it over to Kristen because if you know Kristen's involvement with fire, you'll know that she works very closely with the stations. So she is best able to give you a super thorough a super thorough explanation on some of the changes that have taken place in fire just over the last few months.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. So I'm going to go a little off script and not follow the summary sheets you have, but I promise I'm still going to cover everything for you. So first, I just want to give you some background on some changes on how we're going to be dispersing the fire tax money to the departments for their operating expenses for 2026. Previously, each department would break up their budget using objects like we do for the township funds. Due to the much smaller pots that the fire departments work within, we were having to make multiple budget amendments throughout 2026 or throughout the year. For 2026, we're moving to a more streamlined process where we're going to issue quarterly disbursements to the fire departments for 1/4 of their total yearly allotments of the fire tax money. So for this reason, the fire budget is going to look quite a bit different than other years prior. Instead of having 20 or so objects for each of the departments, they'll have one line labeled contribution for their total annual allotment. So if you could please turn to page 34 in your books, it would be the newest handout. I know that there were a couple of them. It's the newest version of the handout of page 34.
34 of this?
In the handouts that are in the red folder.
Oh, in the red.
That packet with the updated ones.
Put on the left-hand side.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
So due to the complexity of the fire budget, I created these 1-page snapshots of the fire budget. As I go along, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to stop me because I know I'm going to cover a lot and I just want to make sure I'm keeping everybody together with me, okay? So on page 34, this is a snapshot for scenario 1, which shows the fire budget as it would look for 2026. The first thing I'd like to point out is the fire truck purchase that will take place in 2026. You can see the cost of the truck is $1,985,000, and this purchase was approved in 2026 by the Board of Commissioners, and a purchase order was entered at that time. The purchase order will roll forward into the 2026 budget once we process the year-end close for 2025, and will then become a part of the 2026 budget. It's important to understand that we're not asking this board to approve the expense as it has already been done. The reason that I listed it in this packet is because I want to show the reason why we're bringing in the money from both ARPA and from the fire apparatus, and it's for that expense. When we give you the numbers to approve for the 2026 budget, you will not see that expense of the $1,985,000 for the truck. It will roll forward once we close the year and then become part of the budget. Okay? So it's in this book for the purposes of showing it. Won't be when we have the final budget for you. So the next item I want to point out is that there is $50,000 of fire tax revenue that's going to be moved to the fire apparatus for 2026. This is down from prior years, and there are two reasons for this. The first reason is that general fund can no longer sustain the $200,000 contribution to the fire apparatus fund. The second reason is because for the next 5 years, the fire departments have to make their portion of the bond payment for the radios in the amount of $161,658. Now, if you could look at the handout that's in your packet that is labeled Fire Funding Status Overview Scenario 1, it's these longer pages. This is what our fire apparatus plan would look like status quo as we are standing here. It's this handout that looks like this. It's the one that says scenario 1 that looks like this. As you can see by this handout, we're quite a few years behind where we need to be for purchasing new fire apparatus. There we have it. It's the one that says scenario 1 on it of the long pages. So you can see right away, we're behind on how much we need to have in order to get the new fire apparatus. After lots of, oops, sorry. Now, if you could turn to, oops, the next page is 41, where the next snapshot is. That would be the one that's in your book. I don't think there's a new page 41. That's the scenario 2 in the book. So scenario 2 shows the impact a potential fire increase could have in tackling our aging apparatus across 3 departments, as well as supporting increasing costs to the 3 fire departments' operational expenses and their capital needs. If you could look at the handout titled Fire Tax Bill Impact, it looks like this. It's in the red folder. This shows that by increasing the fire tax to 0.75 mils as presented in scenario 2, it would mean an additional $98 per year for a home in South Whitehall valued at $350,000. Everybody have it? Okay. So this just gives a breakdown as what the impact would be for the homeowners. Is there any questions on that? The median value home in South Whitehall is around $350, so that's why I'm giving the example of $98 additional. Okay. So then if you could look at the other handout that looks like this and it says scenario 2. What you can see in this scenario is that we would be able to be back on track for funding our fire apparatus for the departments. And that's, via the moving the mills to 0.75, okay? And there's no loss. We're not looking at anything for like 10 years of having to do another increase. That if we move to 0.75, that's the increase that keeps us on track until 2035. No increase would be needed before then. The next thing I wanted to point out is the increase of the money that's going. Sorry, I lost my place. Oh yeah, so on this handout, I'm sorry, I wanted to point out that after the 5 years of the radio payment, you'll see an additional amount of money then. That radio payment money then would transfer to going to the apparatus as well. So after those 5 years, another increase there to help that as well. Okay. So to review, in scenario 1, the revenues for the fire tax are 2.19 million, which is a 61.49% increase from 2025. This increase is due to the interfund transfers that we're bringing in to pay for the fire truck. Expenses are 1.11 million, and this is a 4.2% decrease from 2025. In scenario 2, the revenues for the fire tax would be 2.88 million, which is an increase to 112% from 25. And expenses are 1.14 million. This would be a 1.6% decrease from 2025. The estimated cash carry forward for 2025 is $832,107.02. The cash carry forward for fire fund is used to get the fire fund operations through the first 3 months of the year until the 26 fire tax revenue starts to come in. The 2025 interest earned to date on the fire fiscal stability monies is $403.38, and the APY as of September is 0.67. So at this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have on the 2 scenarios for the fire tax.
I have a quick question, Kristen. When was the last time that the fire tax was raised? Do you have a history?
We have not raised the fire tax since it's been implemented. It has stayed at 0.47 since 2018, I believe, when we started it.
So since 2018, it has not been changed?
Correct.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate staff and all the work that's clearly been thought out to have a long-range plan for fire apparatus. Commissioner Peischel and myself sit on the volunteer fire subcommittee, and this is something we've discussed with our fire chiefs over the last couple of years. And certainly looking at the numbers as they've been presented, the current contribution from the general fund is not sustainable to fund the needs of our fire apparatus. In addition to that, we've certainly heard and been made aware of even testimony at the federal level that the cost of fire equipment has risen significantly. Trucks that were $500,000 10 years ago are now over $1 million, and delivery time right now is about 48 months. Is that right, Commissioner Peischel?
Yeah, yes.
So we've got some significant hurdles in front of us, and I think that examining this and making a plan to have our fire apparatus funded as it needs to be, as we fund every other category in the township, is critical for the public safety aspect, as well as just being able to plan budgetarily as a board and staff. So I appreciate this work and certainly look forward to digesting this and looking for solutions, because we need to take some action to rectify this.
Yeah, and just to piggyback, meeting with the fire chiefs, they've been all very open to working together to find ways to help mitigate the costs, such as, bulk purchases or, 2 at a time. The manufacturers obviously appreciate, 2 contracts. So they're also working to minimize the impact on the township.
And I just wanted to point out, too, that the township conducted a replacement study in 2024, which became available earlier this year. And that study indicated that we need to replace the apparatus to maintain the current insurance services office ISO ratings across the township, which those directly impact fire insurance premiums for residents. So there's a number of effects to ensure that we maintain the current level of public safety response time, as well as the ability to maintain those ISO ratings across the township.
Thank you for bringing that up, Tom. That was an independent study
Yes.
by the DCED.
Yes, by the Commonwealth of PA Department of Economic Development.
Very good.
I also wanted to note that when you invest in apparatus and you order a new truck, it takes years for these trucks to be designed and be built. And the aerial that Satronia is going to be getting soon, that took 4+ years.
Well, 2023, if I'm not mistaken, that's when it was ordered. That's when the Board of Commissioners approved it. So 2023, and it's going to take until, I believe, mid or
November, they're
even
looking
towards the
November.
end of 26 for that apparatus to come in. So yeah, it takes so long.
Yeah, so it's good to have these progression, the plan, the projections. That's the word I'm looking for. It's good to have a projection and a plan.
I would agree. We talked about this a lot in the finance committee meeting, and I'm glad now that the public will also have, when we approve the budget, have access to this as well. Certainly, when we consider any increase in the millage rate, it should be rare. It should be absolutely necessary, and it should always be tied to a specific purpose. And I think your proposal to raise the rate here from 0.47 to 0.75 meets all three of those criteria. I think we've been fortunate enough, considering the fire tax was enacted in 2018, and over the past 7 years, we've lived through one of the highest inflationary periods in this nation's history, and I think that it's all but necessary to do this now. And I think when you look, and I encourage everyone eventually to look at this plan. When you look at the estimated cost now in 2025, I mean, take engine 11. The estimated cost now is 1.3 million. The estimated cost at the time of replacement, 2035, is 1.95 million. So we're going to continue to see increases, and there is simply no way without depleting necessary reserves and other sources of funds that we're going to be able to meet our obligation. And we do have an obligation to provide for these resources and provide for our departments, because they provide for us. So I think this is one of those exceedingly rare times where a millage rate increase is appropriate. So if you're looking for direction from us, I think as you prepare the budget, for the readings and then eventually the adoption in December, my personal direction and preference would be to draft the final budget with option 2.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Any public comment on this item?
There was just one fire tax question that was asked. So I'll read that into the record for the benefit of the people listening online. The question was, please give the different scenarios for the fire fund. It was not, I am not sure I'm fully understanding. The first scenario is no millage increase, but requires a general fund transfer in the amount of $200,000, while the second scenario proposes a millage increase without a transfer. And the response to that was that a correction was made to scenario 1, but words that were causing some confusion were not removed. So we had since then updated page 34, which is in your packet or in the packet that included the updated pages that you received tonight. And then we would be going into detail for both scenarios, which Kristen has already done.
Very good.
I just want to clarify, the budget's not public till after you vote to advertise it. So that would be after next Wednesday.
Very good.
Okay, so we'll move on to the general fund. General fund you can find on pages 5 through 32. So the township is projecting 21.91 million in revenues for the year 2026, which is a 4.96 increase over the year 2025. Budgeted expenditures are projected to be 21.91 million, which is an increase of 1.66% from 2025. That leaves revenues and expenses totaling 21,917,110 and 41 cents. This puts our fund balance at 13.35 million at the end of 2025. Keeping in mind the fund balance policy for the general fund requires the balance be between 20 and 30% of yearly general fund revenues. So at the end of 2025, we will be at approximately 60%. As of September 30, 2025, we're forecasting the 2025 cash carry forward to be approximately 4,187,809 and 87 cents. As of that date, so as of September 30th, 2025, $5 million was still combined with the fiscal stability monies that are earning additional interest. On October 7th, we pulled $3 million back to the general fund to make the 2025 pension payment. The 2025 interest earned to date on general fund fiscal stability monies with an APY of 4.49% is $380,065.47. Some notes on cash carry forward for the general fund as it remains healthy. But again, there are several factors that feed that every year. Factors feeding that are unspent carry forward from prior years, revenues coming in higher than projected, departments spending less than the original anticipated need, and quite simply, some accounts are just funded for unforeseen circumstances. So we just went over the fire fund and we talked about the $200,000 contribution from general, and we discussed that beginning 2026, as it's not sustainable, you won't see that transfer happening from the general fund. Due to an increase in expenses for 2026 and a healthy fund balance at the end of 2024, our annual audit showed that our end of year 2024 fund balance percentage was 56%. And again, just keep in mind the recommendation per the fund balance policy is 20 to 30. We're proposing the use of fiscal stability monies in the amount of $872,578 to make the 2026 general fund portion of the 2021 general obligation bond payment. While using this would not impact the year 2024, to demonstrate the impact using that money would have, it would take the 2024 audited fund balance from 56% to approximately 42%. Again, the fund balance policy recommendation is between 20 and 30%. Additionally, while it would not have any impact on 2025, using that would change our projected end of year fund balance percentage from approximately 60% to around 56%. 2026 budget contributors were asked to apply a different approach when building their budgets. We asked them to apply a zero-based approach when they were considering their needs for the year 2026. As a result of this new budget model and some departments budgeting so closely to what they anticipated their needs to be, a contingency amount is going to be placed in the executive budget for items and expenses that we could not have foreseen. The use of those contingency monies would be at the sole discretion of the executive office. Just to give you an example of something contingency might cover, if you look at the finance budget on page 11, contingency can cover things where every year we seemingly put a little bit of money aside for those just in case things that end up being expense lines that we never book anything to. So if you look at page 11 on the finance budget, every year we budget $1,000 in object 40315, which is labeled tax appeal hearings. And that's for any costs that could arise as a result of a possible tax appeal. But you can also see, if you look at the history, we never use it. So contingency can be used if unusual expenses like that end up surfacing. So there's no reason to continue to carry a small line like that we typically don't use if we have some place that we can use it in the rare event that those expenses arise. Shortly after we decided to take a zero-based approach to this budget for 2026, we were made aware of a new GASB requirement that will go into effect with the 2026 audit that'll take place in 2027. GASB statement number 103 will require detailed explanation for all, and I quote, significant budget to actual variances. We've discussed this with our auditor and with the budget, budget contributors will be asked to and should be prepared to explain revenue and expense accounts that come over or under budget by 5%. 5% is the benchmark that our auditor has given us. So in 2027, when she's reviewing the 2026 lines, any expenses that came in greater than 5% under budget, explanations will have to be issued by those departments. The finance line that I used in the above example, I'd just like to point out that would have triggered that 5% rule. So it's silly, right? It's $1,000. You think it's not much, but if we're spending nothing, then we've over budgeted by $1,000. We've over budgeted by 100%. So we would end up having to issue an explanation during the 26 audit for something that we know is just there as a placeholder for those unexpected expenses. While the healthy cash carry forward every year is nice, because it does help to fund the next year's capital requests, we also believe GASB 103 will help provide clarity on what items are feeding this every year. On page 26 in the budget, this is the Public Works budget page, and it's just going to show you where that $81,000 in electricity costs were discussed when we talked about the state highway aid budget. The amount being budgeted for telephone charges on page 20 is contingent upon the approval of all capital requests and would have been subject to change if there was an appetite amongst any of the commissioners to remove any of the capital requests for 2026. So I'll just take some time to read in the questions that were asked as it related to the general fund. So as it relates to admissions tax revenue, there were two questions asked. The first question was, do we have any explanation for why revenues came in so far under this year? Is the 2026 number based on where we expect 2025 to be after the season is over? In budgeting for admissions tax revenue, are there any discussions with Dorney Park regarding their expected performance for the following year, or any other data, industry data trends that could be considered, giving deference to that one being a hard one to predict? The other question related to admissions tax revenue, before I read the administration's response, because it was essentially the same. We know about the decrease in admissions tax in 2025, and how did we come to that figure for 2026? And is it conservative enough of a projection for the year 2026? So the admissions tax revenue for Dorney Park was largely due to a result of a shift in marketing practices by Six Flags and Cedar Fair. Dorney Park did not conduct as much external marketing into the New York metropolitan area, and they eliminated multiple special events programming. There was also a weather impact early on in the season. Admissions revenue is down across the country. And then we just referenced an article that was published by NBC News. It's important to note the average amount collected over the last 6 years is $1,674,990. We still feel that $1,575,000 is a conservative number for 2026, but we've lowered this to $1,535,000 even. In speaking with executives at Dorney Park Six Flags, there does not appear to be a major difference anticipated for 2026 as opposed to previous years. The next question is concerning special police services revenue. Is the decrease from the 2025 budget in any way related to the creation of the Dorney Park Police Services item? And the administration's response was yes. The 36214 line was specifically created to help parse out the receipt of revenue from Dorney Park and more accurately track the amounts for budgeting and accounting operational transparency. The next question was concerning the executive meals and food line. I know this is an incredibly small and insignificant expense, but why this significant increase? The response to that question was the increase to the line item is attributed to a calculation of the costs should Tom attend conferences and seek reimbursements. Exec typically comes in significantly under budget for these items, and they do not always seek reimbursements. Tom does intend to go to more educational conferences in 26 to ensure that he's meeting his continuing education requirements for his ICMA CM certification, those requirements of 40 hours per year. Police training expense was the next question. Does the increase reflect an increase in the cost of current training or an expansion of the current training programs offered to the officers? The cost increase is attributed to an expansion to the training programs offered to our officers. The next question was, again, one of those sort of asked twice, so I'll just read both of the questions into the record before I issue the administration's response. Would it be possible, maybe throughout this year and for the 2027 budget, to have the Parks and Rec and police departments make an additional effort to get sponsorships and donations to cover some of their more public-facing programming? I know they're generally small expenses compared to overall expenses, but obviously every little bit helps. The other question that was similar is township programs, events across all departments. Is it possible to solicit interest from our township businesses to sponsor events early in each calendar year to help offset these costs with the added benefit of promoting our business partners and foundations? So Parks and Recreation and the police departments have been ramping up their efforts and have been able to attain additional sponsorships and donations. They have been successful, but it's also very difficult to forecast these programs and these expenses, not knowing specifically what donations we're going to be able to rely on. General expenses by department. Are the increases in fire, ambulance, and EMS reflective of the purchase of new radios? Is this why there is a significant jump? I realize fire needs new equipment, but just wanted to clarify the jumps in other expenses. The increases are primarily attributed to the 5-year principal-only debt payments, again, with no interest being charged to the township by the county for the radio purchases. Please note that Citronia Ambulance will reimburse the township for their annual payment for the radios, but the township must still account for the expense to be paid in the debt fund in accordance with the Local Government Unit Debt Act requirements after a transfer, as well as the corresponding receipt of the revenue. here is a breakdown of the payments for the 5-year zero interest loan from the county. I believe we talked about the amounts of these bond payments, but I'll just read them off again since that's how the question was answered from the administration. So the fire department's fire fund, $161,657.64. Emergency management general fund, $12,366.63. And then Citronia ambulance general fund, $91,978.04, again with the corresponding revenue to be received. The next question was concerning the farmland lease. This is a big difference from 2025. Can you please explain that difference? And this was simply a transposition. We have since reduced the line back to $2,000. Additionally, while we were reviewing revenue lines, we increased the BP interest line by $18,000 due to the past 2 years of revenue received, and we believe that line had room for increase. If you look at the history on that line, we've really been coming in way over budget on the revenue that we're forecasting for BP interest. Miscellaneous revenue, the question was what exactly is covered under miscellaneous revenue. So as of 9/30/2025, this line had a total of $118,071.59. That line had an entry that is essentially an in and out situation. The in happened in September, the out happened in October. So when we provided you with numbers that were effective September 30th, you were only seeing one side of that transaction. You weren't seeing the other side. So the line currently is sitting at a total of $39,435.69, and this is mostly due to the MRM dividend payment from 2019 to 2023. We use this revenue line for items that are generally one-time situations like the MRM payment and for revenues that don't really fit into any other revenue lines. This is also where we record revenue from things like scrap metal. Next question is about police special services revenue. This is a big difference from 2025 to 2026, and could we clarify? So the 36210 line in the police budget labeled special police services revenue was decreased from the 2025 budget figure for the 2026 budget due to the creation of that Dorney Park police services item. So you'll see that now on line 36214. The receipt of the revenue from Dorney Park, and to more accurately track the amounts for budgeting and accounting / operational transparency. Hearing fees revenue is the next question. This line went from 1,000 to 0, and the question was to just understand why. The reason this line has been zeroed out, and we talked about this when we talked about the contingency line in, isn't that the same one? Okay. This is zoning hearing board. Okay. So the reason this line has been zeroed out is we are proposing to move an increased zoning hearing board application fee due to some issues that we've been running into, both with the billing to South Whitehall Township and the reimbursement from the applicant after the hearing has taken place. So in order to ensure that the township is reimbursed and made whole, we'd like to increase the application fee to cover those costs. And if that's done, then this particular line wouldn't need to be funded for that expense. A question concerning EMS dues and subscriptions, and that it increased from $700 to $9,505, with the actual expense for 2025 being $608. So this was for the purchase of the D4H emergency management software that we expect to cost $5,500. It was determined that this should be listed as an EMS expense, and the cost represents the next tier of D4H per a price quotation that the township recently received. EMS question about the interfund transfer of $12,000. Again, this is necessary due to the annual payment of the radios. This is being paid out of the cash account that was proactively set aside specifically by the EMS director for the future payment of the radios. Stormwater management increased from $500,000 to $85,000, and the response was the Public Works stormwater line of 40945 will be decreased by $40,000 back to $45,000. Subsequently, we've reduced the admissions tax revenue by that same $40,000, as it was determined that $40,000 in costs related to stormwater had already been accounted for in a capital request that was submitted. Next question, multiple department line items reflect an increase in health insurance. I'm interested in learning what the cost trend is for health insurance for the past few years, and has the township considered whether going out to bid for insurance may be beneficial? Health insurance costs increased by over 15% last year and will increase by just under 19% in 2026. The township's participation in PHMIC Benecon makes it extremely difficult to shop for other plans, as prior written notice must be received at least 6 months in advance that the township intends to leave PHMIC. Based on a neutral review of the township's claim history, prescription benefits usage, and the union CBA obligations regarding health insurance, the township would likely pay more for premiums in a setting outside of PHMIC Benecon, in which the same level of coverage was retained, again, which is required by the CBA, the PW and the PD unions. The next question was about Project Lifesaver. Noting zero expenses to date for 2025, how does the township inform residents of the availability of this program? So an invoice for this line was signed by the executive office on 10/27/2025, or what we gave you, dated 9/30, might have looked a little different. The police department lists this program on its website, and we've been told that there are 19 signs in total that will be placed throughout the township to advertise that. The next question is Parks and Rec community events reduced from 38,000 to 21,000, and has there been a change to the proposed event schedule for the year 2026? The reduced costs are attributed to the zero-based budgeting process, in which all costs were reconciled on actual needs and upon review of actual expenditures. The next question, Parks and Rec plan for park refresh. If the open space referendum is passed on November 4th, 25% of the EIT funds may be utilized for improving and maintaining open space. Would the township have the ability to use a portion of these funds on future park upgrades? The township would have the opportunity in the future to utilize either 25% of the accumulated fund balance or 25% of the annual receipt of revenue each year to be used for parks improvement and maintenance costs. However, it is important to note that if the township were to incur debt related to an open space purchase, state law requires the township to pay down all debt first before utilizing the fund balance or the annual revenue for parks improvements and maintenance costs. The next question, Public Works and Parks and Rec budget contain new line items of part-time staff of $20,000 each for each department. Are these new positions? And the response to that was, this is for one new part-time administrative support position split between both Public Works and Parks and Recreation. Okay, those are all the questions read into the record. So now is the time for open discussion as it relates to general fund. Before we jump into that, I'll just read the objective. The objective is to have directive from the Board of Commissioners on using fiscal stability money to make the general funds portion of the 2026 bond payment. Now I hand it over to you.
Tricia, thank you. I want to commend staff on the format of allowing the commissioners to have a draft copy of the budget well in advance of tonight's meeting, and opening up an opportunity for us to direct questions to you in advance and have answers provided to us, and reading them into the record tonight. This is very valuable information, not just for us, but also for the community. So I want to thank you for that. As you were going through the different questions and also the beginning of the discussion of this fund, I was particularly noticing the fund balance, forecasting fund balance, and pulling $3 million out of the general fund to make the pension payment, and going on to explain the amount of interest earned on the general fiscal stability fund. That topic is on each fund, but there's an APY for each one and the amount that's been earned. And I just want to note my gratitude for staff, administration, carefully going through our fiscal stability funds, moving funds as is appropriate, reinvesting, and this is real money that comes back into the budget that we can reinvest then into other needs without passing a tax increase to our community. So I just want to thank everyone for your diligence in that. And other comment was on the new approach to the budgeting this year of zero-based. This is something that I've certainly been interested in for the 6 years I've been on the board. And I commend you all for approaching in that manner. I'm sure it was a little more work than normal for all staff involved in all departments, all contributors. So I want to extend our gratitude for that. But in the essence of transparency to the community, to go to zero and build up, I don't know what else we can do to portray and demonstrate to the community that we're being good stewards of the tax dollars that we take in. So many thanks to everyone in this township who has a hand in this budget for what you've done.
Thank you. Just to cut you off before you make additional comments, I can say, change is never easy, right? But you don't have a budget team that is just going to sit back and say, let's just keep doing it this way because it's the way that it's always been done. If there is something that works better, we're certainly open to it. I think when we went down the path of zero-based budgeting, we knew it was going to be an adjustment for us. We knew it was going to be an adjustment for the departments. Heck, we didn't really know if it was going to be successful, if it was going to work. Will we stick with this model? Won't we? There are still a lot of, unknowns. But I think one of the things that I appreciate most about the team that I work with is, even if it only works for 1 year, nobody's afraid to try that, which I think is just really, it's good. You don't keep doing something just because it's always been done that way. I don't think any of us take that approach. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate you saying we don't just do it because that's the way we always done it. That would make me take my blood pressure meds. The only thing that I talked to my my fellow commissioners here is I know it's only $2,000, but this farmland lease, I would like to see reduced to $1 and do everything we can to support the farmer who's doing that for us, to keep it active, to help them be profitable. I don't know if, $1,900 is going to make a big difference to them, but I think it just shows that we're committed to keeping the open space into farming as long as possible. And I don't think that'll negatively affect our bottom line.
That's interesting that you raised that. When I reviewed the budget and I saw our lease for the library is $1, I actually thought about that. Why is the library charged $1 to lease that building for an entire year, and we charge $2,000 for a farmer to farm? It is a 100-year lease. I know it might be apples and oranges, but it just struck me as interesting. It's a 25-year lease. So 50-year lease.
So I don't know if the way the rest, just that was my concern. Not my concern, but I'd just like to see us do as much as we can for $1,900. I don't think that would be a major.
I agree with Chris.
Good too.
Yeah.
My next question, if you don't mind, if I can go again, you're going to have to help me with this one. How is admission tax revenue tied to stormwater?
So the answer to that is it's not tied to stormwater, but when we realized that that stormwater line can be dropped from 85 to 45, we knew we had $40,000. We had an adjustment of $40,000 to make somewhere. So the make sense place for us was to adjust that admissions tax revenue downwards as just an extra buffer in case we see further decline on that admissions tax revenue.
Okay, I get that. And that's what I figured it was. But you said that the $40,000 were already accounted for in a separate capital request. So that would then put us 40,000 back into the ahead on the other way.
Capital fund is separate from general fund. So the capital fund monies are a separate fund than general fund monies. So in an effort to make sure we stay balanced on the general fund side, that downward number needed to happen on the revenue side somewhere. We need to expect 40,000 less in revenue somewhere to make that number transition work on the expense side. I don't know that I explained that.
No, I see what you're saying. I get it. We'll just be 40,000 head at the end of the year.
We can find somewhere else to spend $40,000 and bump that admissions tax revenue number back up.
No. Just I think your admission tax revenue is good where it's at. But
Yeah, Chris, what that was, that $40,000, it was in the stormwater general fund. And it was also budgeted in the capital request for the bioswale. That is the match portion of the grant that we have with LCCD for the bioswale.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, I want to thank you for incorporating all our questions and answers into the record. You make our job easy by putting together a budget that is incredibly legible and easy to navigate. And I want to thank you too for spearheading the switch to zero-based budgeting. I know it's something we've talked about for a long time, and I'm glad we're finally able to do it. And I'm glad it went well working with the department heads. I think anything that the township can do for the taxpayers to hold each department accountable for their budgeting procedures, I think is important. That being said, I think I want to thank all the department heads too for their work, and we have just the utmost, I can probably speak for all of us when I say we have the utmost confidence in all of our department heads to put their budgets together properly. I was interested to learn about the new accounting standard with that sort of 5% over budget, under budget, requiring an explanation. Herb, get ready to write a lot because we know Herb's always coming in under budget, so he's get some new pens and get ready to be able to explain that. But I know they'll all be under budget, not over budget by more than 5%. With respect to the specific direction you asked for, I'm perfectly fine using fiscal stability monies to make the bond payment. I think that's one of the reasons why we have those funds set aside. Obviously, we have a extraordinarily healthy reserves compared to where we were just a few years ago. So I'm absolutely fine with that. And I just want to thank you for putting together a general fund budget that doesn't include an increase in the general millage rate. That's something that's quite honestly very hard to do nowadays. And while it certainly can't last forever, it's something we can do now. I know some other townships around us have been looking at significant millage rate increases this year. So however long we can, continue that trend and not put that burden onto our residents until that day comes, I think is great. So I want to thank the entire team. I want to thank all the department heads, all the staff. Obviously, our readings of the budget, and we'll approve the budget later this year. But this is the first big hurdle. So thank you all. I really appreciate it, and I have no additional questions.
Thank you. We appreciate that feedback.
Well said, both of you. I want to sincerely thank you. You really did all the heavy lifting, all the hard work, and you make us look good. But you put a lot of effort into preparing this year's budget. We've, at least for my term, held things steady, and that's really a testament to you and the commitment of all the department heads and the discipline and the accountability. As prices are going up all around us, we've been really constant. So thank you.
Not always pretty, but yeah.
Yeah, no,
We do our
it's yeah. As I was going through like line by line by line, I could see where, there were decreases or no changes. And, in a world where everything's going up, that had to be incredibly difficult to do. So thank you. And I just, I have no problem with delving into fiscal stability. It's there for a reason. I mean, I don't want to deplete our resources. It's there for a reason. It's a rainy day fund. But in this instance, it still remains healthy, and I support what you are doing. And I wanted to thank you again for working so hard to serve our residents and again, keep things steady and stable.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Commissioner Johns, do you have any comments?
Thank you all.
You're very welcome.
One more. What would the fiscal stability fund now be up to percentage wise? It was, you said, go up to 60,000. Is that 60,000 after you take the money out for the general obligation, or does that take it down to 46,000?
2025 is projected to be at 60%. If we use the 872, 2025's would be projected to be at 56 instead of 60. So it will technically not actually affect our percentage until 2026's budget. But in order to try and show you guys examples, if we were applying it to 24, it would go from 56 to 42. If we're applying it to 25, it would go from 60 to 56%. So
could we pay off some of those general obligation loans earlier? Could we use some of that fiscal ability to reduce the amount that we pay interest on? Is that legal?
There's quite a lot ahead of us. So the answer is probably no.
I mean, there's probably a lot ahead of us.
There's still so much of the bond that's due and payable. So you wouldn't be able to pay it off and see a realized savings. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm not saying pay it off, but if we make an extra year's payment, right, that would cut the interest that we would be paying on it, but keep our fiscal stability fund at, I'm just throwing numbers out there, like 40%, right? Would that help us, in the long run by reducing
I don't think it would
interest?
recalculate the interest off the top of my head.
Excuse me?
I don't believe it would recalculate the interest. I don't know if that it's calculated simple interest in the way that you're describing. I'd have to double check that.
Right. So to use my truck payment, if I pay off the principal sooner, my interest I pay every
Correct.
month goes
I
down.
don't know if the interest.
I know what you're asking. I just,
That's what I'm at.
off the top of my head, I don't know that it's calculated in that manner.
Okay. All right.
And the interesting or the more complicated issue as well is forecasting the needs we may have in the next year or two if we're going to deplete.
Right. No, I'm not saying
The good-
depleted. I'm just, just Threw the question out there.
It's a fair
That's a
question,
good
but
question.
I think if depending on how the interest is structured,
Yeah.
if it's not just simple.
I'm fairly certain it's not structured that way.
Think
I
so
would like
either.
to go back and look, double check that.
It's not structured that way.
I didn't think so.
Okay. Well, there
Can we
you go.
restructure?
What's that?
Can we restructure?
You can spearhead that one, Chris Eichel.
And we have, what, 10 years remaining, correct?
$2041.
Yeah,
More than 10.
more than 10. So yeah, that's, I don't know that you're going to see, if anything, if interest rates continue to lower, then you would want to maybe restructure it, look at restructuring, but we already did that when interest rates were pretty low. That's the
I thought we
purpose
got a
of the
good rate on
21
bond.
restructuring. So you may not have the opportunity to look at that anytime soon. But we'll continue to evaluate. We'll talk to PFM. They make us aware of any good opportunities we'd have as well. But I just don't know right now that there would be
No,
any.
that's fine. And
Yeah.
I agree with President Kelly. You never know what's coming down the road, but 50%, 50, 46, 45% fiscal stability fund.
Well, the
Yeah,
good
if it
news
would
is
make
the
a
interest,
difference, yeah,
I'm
if it would
sorry.
make a difference.
I was going to say, the interest that's earned from these funds is also put back into the budget. So
Oh,
it kind
yeah, I
of is
know.
a good
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah, but if we're getting 4.46% of the number used, but we're paying 5% out in interest on a bond, right? I'm not a mathematician, but I'm pretty sure that's not good.
7:00, so the brain's not numbering anymore.
What is it?
It's 7:00, so my brain is like
It
got
did.
numbers floating all over it.
Are there any other
That's the
questions?
other, I was just
I'm
going to
sorry.
say, that's the other issue to this is arbitrage. Like you have to be careful how you're paying that down earlier. There's a lot to this, but we'll dig into that and try to answer that more thoroughly.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the general fund as we wrap up this segment from the board? Any public comment? Yes.
Yeah, yes, Brian Height, 1273 Eck Road. Brian, could you please unmute? We can't hear you, Brian. He's off.
Can you type it
Can you
in?
type your comment into the chat box if you can hear us, Brian? Not there. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So if there are no other questions, this will complete agenda item 5.
There's actually one more.
Oh, one
fund.
more. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I got ahead of you.
You don't want to miss the most exciting
The
one,
grand
right?
finale.
You don't want to miss
course
the
not.
fiscal stability fund. So pages 70 and 71 in your budget workshop book are the fiscal stability fund. The fiscal stability fund balance as of September 30, 2025 is $14,169,816.24. Of that total, $5 million is still general fund money earning interest, and $4 million was recently deposited into a 12-month CD that's got an APY of 4%. The 2026 interfund transfer from the fiscal stability fund to general fund to make the general fund portion of the 2021 general obligation bond payment is the $872,578. The objective in the discussion as it relates to fiscal stability was just gauging, again, the temperature of the Board of Commissioners on using that $872,578 from fiscal stability to make that bond payment. But I believe during the general fund conversation, you guys gave us direction on that.
Yes. So the board is in agreement to move forward with that use? Okay,
Yes.
Very good.
We don't have anything else. If there's anything in any of the funds that anyone needs or wants to backtrack to, we're happy to just open it up. And if not, then that's all she wrote here tonight.
Any other final comments on the budget by the board? Anyone online?
Did we come back online?
So again, to the finance team, administration, all staff, thank you for your
Thank you.
diligence and an incredible budget presentation. And thank you for the work you do every day on behalf of our community.
You're quite welcome.
Courtesy of the floor, is there anyone online with a comment from? No. We have no exec session. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.